All right. I'm curious to talk to Wingo in Illinois.
Ooh, let me grab Wingo.
Wingo, nice name. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. I appreciate it. How you guys doing?
Doing good.
Really well.
Happy to hear from you. What's your question today?
Well, I was hoping to breach the topic of free will. And
Perfect.
Basically,
Yay.
I've heard a little bit about your guys' takes on it, about like determinism, but I was hoping to hear what your guys' definition of free will is, and just kind of take it from there.
Interesting. I like it. All right. So, free will can mean many things, and I think that there's a popular concept of what we mean when we say free will in like general conversation, and then there are like different levels and categories of free will in terms of like philosophical discussion. So usually what I mean when I say free will in like a colloquial sense is this idea that we have complete agency over our choices and we are able to influence the world outside of any kind of determining factors. So that would kind of be like libertarian free will, this concept of...
That's the colloquial view of it,
Yeah.
is that, yeah, libertarian free will.
Mm-hmm. And just this idea that, hey, if I gave you a choice between chocolate ice cream and vanilla ice cream, you could freely, without any kind of biological or physical or any kind of manipulation, I guess.
Mechanism associated.
Choose one or the other. And then if I were to give you the same choice again, erase your memory, you could choose a different thing. So that's kind of what I mean when I talk about free will and why I'm a little bit hesitant to endorse the idea. Eric, how about you?
I'm very, very similar. I would love to be able to kind of talk to Wingo about it as well, but I want to give Wingo the chance to kind of respond to you first, because I feel like if we went back to back, that might prevent them from engaging.
Absolutely. Wingo, what are your thoughts about free will? How do you define it?
Well, it's my belief that as individuals, we don't actually have free will as I would define it, which would be, the ability to, like you said, affect your environment, but in almost unlimited ways, like imposing your will upon your environment. Mm-hmm. I don't believe like individuals have the power to do that.
Interesting.
So
are you a Calvinist?
I don't know what that is. I'm
So,
sorry, dude.
No, you're good. I'm super curious because it says in our notes that you are a theist. Is that correct?
Well, I don't like follow any religion. Like I was
Okay.
raised Catholic, but I don't. I don't
Cool.
like belong to any religion.
That makes a little bit more sense because usually the intersection between people who believe in a God and are religious and people who believe in free will, at least in the US, is they're kind of the same a lot of the time. So I was super curious to hear that. I would tend to agree with you on that. I don't think that as we define it in terms of libertarian free will, it exists. And there have been a myriad of studies and research done to kind of throw doubt on that. Why do you think this matters? Why is this a topic you're calling in about? I mean, I love talking about it, but let's get to the meat of this.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, basically, I think that there's an important distinction between like what we would call, like you said, like the freedom of choice. Mm-hmm. With the ice cream example, I heard somebody the other day say that basically it's not up to you whether you like chocolate or vanilla. You just do. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like it's not, it's just like a chemical thing, basically. Like it's your chemistry, like your. A lot of the choices that we try to make are definitely like hijacked by our reptilian brain or like just our impulses, you know what I mean? So even as a matter of having the freedom of choice, we're still limited by our physiology.
Okay.
I think that what got me down this little, rabbit hole or whatnot was Sam Harris made this comment about 80% of who we are today is due to like who we are as in our genetics.
Yeah.
And 20% is due to environment.
Those are interesting statistics. I'm not sure where those particular percentages come from, but yeah.
I'm just paraphrasing. But in my opinion, like I think it's completely reverse. Like honestly, because you take like Michael Jordan, right? 6-time world champ. He's one of the greatest athletes of all time. And say Michael Jordan
Wingo?
grew up in Zamunda. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. I do want to make sure that we're engaging in a dialogue here, just because that's the most interesting thing for the viewers.
Yeah,
so
I just want to make an example, kind of like with you know what I mean, like because it comes back to the ice cream example, pretty much.
Right. So I guess my question is, do you feel like the way that you see free will, and if it in fact is not accurate how society defines it, do you think that would impact things like God belief?
Well, I don't necessarily have an opinion on whether it would affect God belief or not, but I believe that if we looked at ourselves as a species and as individuals, and we took the idea of free will and took it from the perspective of a species as opposed to individuals, we would be able to impose our will. Say, okay, I'm just trying to come up with examples to explain what I'm thinking. Say flight, can you fly? You can't fly, right? As a human being, you can't fly.
And so we don't have that.
Mankind can fly. You know what I mean? You
but
get a plane ticket, you can fly.
Interesting.
I guess the problem there is when it starts getting that broad, we start falling into kind of fallacious patterns. And so I would be careful on that one. The example there's the fallacy of division and composition that one jumps into. So humanity, quote unquote, can fly. Right, but that doesn't mean an individual can fly. Right, if you're talking about that's the fallacy of division. And so we've got to really be careful about how we're defining. Most of it is just semantics, but if we're not careful about how we're defining it, we can start getting into some really, really weird spaces. You know what I mean?
Can you give me an example of one of those weird spaces? I'm sorry.
Sure. No worries. So let me think. I want to give you something absurd, right? Let's say I am looking at a car. I say that is a car. I remove a piece from the car, maybe the steering wheel or the seat. And can I look at either of those individual pieces and say that is also a car?
Okay.
Right?
Okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. And the other side of it is looking at individual pieces and saying that what is true of the individual pieces is true of the whole. So you're baking a cake. You can look at flour and go, flour is white, soft, and fluffy. Does that also mean that the cake is white and soft and fluffy? No. Because when you put the individual pieces together, it creates something new, and that new thing does not necessarily have the properties of what those individual pieces have. And so when we're talking about something, especially as nebulous as free will, I'd definitely be careful to not equate the whole with the parts, because then you fall into those fallacies of division and composition. Thank you, B.
Yeah.
Okay. Those are really interesting examples about ways it can go wrong. But, basically the conclusion of what I've kind of just my thoughts about our species is like I was saying, mankind can fly even though individuals can't fly. It is thought like we are the only species on planet Earth that has ever existed that has actual free will, because I believe that we are able to go beyond the limitations of what like our planet has given us. I mean, like we can basically can outlive our planet. Like we actually have the option to outlive our planet. Really, we can expand to other parts of the universe.
So that's
go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, that's an interesting definition of free will that I think would be useful to unpack a little bit. So we agree that like the free choice aspect might not be accurate the way we think about it, but you're defining free will more as the ability to conquer one's environment or biology.
That's I mean,
interesting.
Making things possible that shouldn't be possible.
That's a really interesting concept, because
I've never heard of free will being defined that way.
Me neither, but I kind of like it. It to me, it feels very much like a redefinition in the way that Dennett redefines free will to mean decisions you've made without external, stimuli and manipulation or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like if I'm not holding a gun to your head, then the choices you make are technically free in the way that Dennett describes it, even if biologically on a molecular level they're not. And I feel like, Wingo, you're kind of doing the same thing where you're like, okay, granting free will in the way that libertarians might believe is not accurate. What if we said that free will was this thing, this ability to transcend our physical kind of natural limitations, which is very interesting. And I'm going to have to chew on that some more.
I don't know. I think I might I might try and use different language, because I think it might get confusing for me if I used those specific words. I don't know. I think I would need to get past some of my own preconceptions in order to do that. But it seems like that's kind of foregoing a discussion that's usually reserved for the ghost in the machine, the arguments about whether or not there is a soul.
Right.
Instead, it's talking about a kind of a meta-analysis of the limitations of our species.
Yeah, which is interesting. I would read a paper on it. Wingo, thank you for your thoughts here. That was actually a really interesting take.
Yeah.
All right, I appreciate it. Sorry it was a little sloppy, but I appreciate you guys definitely.
We got there.
Yeah. Very great job. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care,
Thanks for calling in.
Have a good day.
You too. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if free will, at least in the way that I've used the word my entire life, could... I don't know. It just seems like a new full definition, not like and that's, definition 1, 2, like it would.
Right. And honestly, that to me is the interesting and also the infuriating part of the free will discussion, which is Wingo did exactly what philosophers do with the term free will. They say, okay, well, that doesn't exist, but let's redefine it so we can still pretend we have it. I feel like that's what Dennett did. That's what Sam Harris does. Like, people do this where they're like, okay, well, we want this term in use. We want to be able to say, I have free will. Well, what does that mean? We understand now that our previous conceptions of what free will is are wrong. So how do we redefine it in a way to keep it applicable? And I mean, that's very interesting. And as a descriptivist, I'm like, yeah, let's play with a word and see if we can make it mean new and useful things.
Yeah, I'm a little more hesitant.
Yeah, the only concept there that I would push on is like, okay, well, I'm all about redefining something and adding definitions if it's useful. Where is that useful? Like, where in the conversation would that come into play as a useful concept? And
I guess for me, it's more... I don't know. I think that when it comes to like having a channel like this, being a communicator, if someone were to tune in right now and hear me go, oh yeah, I believe in free will, and didn't get all of the context, and people get taken out of context, that could be used to, prop up an endorsement of libertarian free will that we already set aside at the very beginning of the conversation.
And this, I think, is our fundamental difference in how we approach philosophy overall. And we might do a live stream on that. I feel like that would be a fun debate to have.
Where we can just argue with each other about.
Yeah. Would you watch us just argue with each other about philosophy for a couple hours over drinks?
Because we do that all of the time.
We will do that
in our off time.
Absolutely. So let us know. Also, thank you everybody who's sending in super chats. If you would like to ask us a question or have us read something for you on air, and you don't want to call in, which is understandable, you can leave it as a super chat. We always read them out at the end of the episode.
We do reserve the right not to read all of them if it's some kind of bigoted, hateful, weird thing.
Yeah, in that case, we'll just take your money and ignore you.